Good evening, everyone. Thank you to Elon Musk for finally doing something right and timing in his supposed resignation as CEO in time for our 9 o'clock get together. So we're going to talk about all of this and all that's happened in the last 48 hours. And I want to start off by saying how the only thing that has surprised me since this whole thing started, because pretty much everything that we've spoken about in this podcast series has come to fruition. The thing that surprised me the most is this man just has no understanding of finance, even in the most basic of terms. And I find it shocking, disturbing. When we spoke Sunday, I told you all that he was going to have to resign. It wasn't because he realizes it was the right thing to do. He was going to have to resign because Tesla shareholders had had enough and the stock was down 15% last week. And so he did this poll Sunday night, and I expected in a rational world, he would wake up on Monday and did the poll because he knew what he was going to do anyway, which was he had to resign and focus on Tesla. But he didn't. And he let it go for an extra day. And just to put into perspective the damage that he did to himself, most of his net worth is tied up in Tesla. He also has a 40% stake in SpaceX, which on paper is worth $50 million. Oh, here goes Shep on cue. Now he's drinking his water. But the vast majority of his net worth is tied up in Tesla shares. So of course you want to do something to preserve the value. If you're a rational player, you want to preserve your net worth. Here's what he did today alone. Musk owns 423.6 million shares of Tesla. He also owns options. I don't have the valuation, the strike price and all the information to value those in time for the call tonight. But assuming they're worth nothing, and they're not worth nothing, just on the shares he owns outright alone, today, those shares traded down $12.07 per share. Today alone, Musk lost 5.1 billion of his net worth just for hubris. If he had done this same thing on Sunday night or Monday morning before the market opened, none of this would have happened. And will he get it back? Well, I'm not so sure anymore. First of all, as we talked about Sunday, I don't think there is a person that is going to come in and fill this void. He tried this morning. First, they leaked a story to CNBC this morning to trade, because you could see in pre-market that the stock was going to trade down Tesla. They leaked a story into CNBC that he was already hunting out for a CEO. They leaked a story to Fox News that he was speaking to former PayPal executives who then denied they had heard from him. But folks, in a real world, if any of you who have worked for a company, big or small, if you're planning to step down, what is the thing you do first? You find the person who is going to take your place. So this guy is a bad manager. The guy doesn't understand finance. I found his tweet today, which I shared on my wall if you didn't see it, when people were, mocking him for his stock going down $12 in one day. His response was like the kind of thing a junior high school student would say who had taken, seen something on TV and wanted to parrot it back. Yes, there is some year-end talk about yields being very attractive next year and that making the stock market less attractive. That is true. But that's not why Tesla traded down today. The Oppenheimer analyst calls it like a negative reinforcement loop. He's pissing off his users, he's pissing off the advertisers, and it's going round and round. I believe now it's unclear if this stock is going to rebound, even if he were able to replace the CEO. But you have to understand he's lost so much credibility with the financial community that I don't know if they're dumb enough to believe him. He had said he would not be selling more Tesla shares. He sold Tesla shares in April when he initially made his bid for Twitter. He sold more shares in November, promised everyone that would be his last sale, sold more shares last week, told everyone that would be his last sale. The guy is has ruined his reputation. And, the Musk bros, the ones who come to my page and tell me I don't understand the art of war and how brilliant he is. No. This is a sad man who, similar to Putin and similar to Trump, has surrounded himself with a small circle. And with Elon, it seems like the circle has just gotten smaller. Now that's Arlene barking. The circle has just gotten smaller. And there's nobody that's able to talk common sense into him. I think probably finally tonight, his brother, who was on the board of Tesla, or somebody said to him, we're going to be going down another 10% tomorrow unless you get this right. So he made this statement. Okay. Again, I don't know that he's going to find anyone of any quality. All you're going to be doing is falling on the sword. Whoever comes in next is inheriting a company that when Musk started, he had told publicly, when the advertisers were starting to pull, that he was losing $4 million a day. It probably at this point is even worse than that. His whole thing with subscription saving him. I don't know if you all have tried. I keep trying and looking on Apple, my Apple store. I still don't see the Twitter subscriptions. If he had any decent amount, he would have been bragging about it endlessly. So that's not working. So he's losing, say, now 4 to 5 million a day. And don't forget the big, thing that we've been talking about, the interest payment. These banks he owns. He owes these banks, do this top chart, who are writing down their debt. He owes them, these banks, $100 million of interest per month. So regardless of whether he finds the other CEO, to me, that is just a play on Tesla and trying to save his net worth in Tesla. Coming back to Twitter, what we care about. First of all, I should have said at the top, do not return to Twitter. Do not provide content to Twitter. Even if he does find some flunky CEO to be his puppet, it would be like a puppet regime equivalent. Do not go back. Because as I've been saying since we started, this company is going to go bankrupt or change hands. This company is hemorrhaging cash. They're not paying their bills. They have compliance issues with regulators. This company is going to change hands. And a lot of you have said, well, Twitter's going to go away. Twitter is not going to go away. Twitter is going to change ownership to somebody that we hope will be rational. And at that point, we can go back. But nothing fundamentally in the story that we have spoken about has changed. The only thing that has happened is things have gotten worse for Musk. There was a poll done by Der Spiegel, which is the largest German newspaper, that found that his recent actions, when people asked, are you more positive or negative because of what Musk has done, 63% of respondents said more negative and 9% more positive. And don't forget, they sell Teslas around the world. So that's bad for Tesla. The US similarly, net negative impression of Musk and Tesla. So not only has he lost a lot of money, and I'm just going to talk about this year alone. Sorry, it's Arlene. Arlene, no. He started off this year worth $304 billion. He's now, as of today, worth $148 billion. He's lost $156 billion so far this year. I know, don't cry for me, Argentina. He's still worth $156 billion. Excuse me, he's still worth $148 billion. But, on a relative basis, he's lost half of his money just playing, a fool's game here with something where he had no plan. He had no vision for Twitter. He just wanted to come in. He had a lot of money jingling in his pocket. And he's an authoritarian, just like Trump, just like Putin, incompetent, small, just can't, just wants to be surrounded by yes people. And when things don't go their way, when things are going off track, they shut down. So what's going to happen? Well, whether he finds this other CEO or doesn't find this other CEO, this company is going to need to restructure or be sold. Restructure / bankruptcy or be sold. Since I was in this world for 2 decades and in the bankruptcy world for 2 decades, I can tell you what is happening to Elon Musk for the last 2 days since he started his little lark of I'm going to resign, and even predating that. He's getting calls from people that want to buy Twitter. They don't want to pay $44 billion, which is what he paid. They probably want to pay something in the range of 10 to 20 billion. My guess is probably closer to 15 billion, maybe less. And so he would have to lose face and basically write his investment down to zero. One of the other investors who invested alongside of him was quoted today in the press saying he believes his stake in Twitter is worth 5 times what he paid for it. So you can see the disconnect between the smoke that Musk is blowing up his co-investors' asses and frankly, I mean, some of the financial press and I can't even believe like how people are not covering the reality of the situation between what he's telling them and what the reality is. As relates to the banks, we talked about 2 times ago, the banks are taking write-downs as the end of the year. These top 3 tranches, according to Bloomberg, they're probably writing down to something like 80 cents on the dollar. And they're probably writing this bottom tranche down to something like 50 cents on the dollar. These banks are taking that write-down because Elon Musk is violating the covenants. He is doing things to make them believe they are not going to be made whole. If he stops paying interest, don't forget he's not paid rent on the office. He has not been paying employees. And just a sidetrack, for a moment, I did feel badly for him today. I admit it. It's kind of Carol Jenkins' fault because I had lunch with her and she, for a moment felt badly for him. But then I remembered everything you all are saying, including, that this company had 7,500 employees. They now have 2,000 employees. A lot of those employees are getting screwed. Not only is he not paying rent, he's not paying severance and they're taking him to court. He's not paying vendors. So once he stops paying interest to these banks, which again is $100 million a month, they can put him into default. And what that means is bankruptcy. And what would happen in bankruptcy is it goes to a court. They come up with a valuation of what the total company is worth. At that point, it's probably going to be something in the range of 10 to 15 billion. The banks have 13 billion outstanding. So it basically means the banks are going to own this company. So what's going to happen in the short term is one of 2 things. Whether he finds a CEO or not, that's really more as relates to Tesla and whether people want to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's he's going to take his eye off of Twitter. I mean, he's literally tweeting about a poll for the omnibus bill. I mean, that's what this guy is doing with his time, just to show us that he can be on Twitter. But regardless of that, this company is either going to be sold or it's going to file bankruptcy. And it's not far out. Like I've told you all, I knew he would be gone quickly. It's just, we just have to let it play out. So until that time, I remind everyone, do not give them content. All you're doing is prolonging the agony for all of us. We do not give content to a company that is authoritarian in nature, that is banning journalists ad hoc by their wishes, that is conducting a poll and then saying, only if you pay can you be part of my poll. All the strange haphazard actions. No. We do not support that. We want this company to continue under the path it is on, to file for bankruptcy or to be sold, and whoever buys it next to have learned the lessons of his mistakes and become a rational player again. Okay, so with that, I'm happy to take your questions. I know some of this stuff is pretty complicated, but I think the message is this announcement. If he were smart, he would have done it 2 nights ago when we first spoke, and he would have saved himself $5 billion. If he lost that much that fast, Could he lose much more? Yes. And I think that is exactly what his brother, who's on the shareholder board of Tesla, said to him, that they're, I'm sure, getting calls from shareholders saying, we've lost as well all this value. What is going on? So he had to make this affirmative statement tonight. That was not him. Like, this guy's understanding of finance is middle grade school level. Like, oh, well, it's because bonds are, no. It's because of you, and because you've hurt your brand, and because people don't believe you, and people are going to stop buying your cars. And there's also operational issues now with Tesla as well. So anyway, okay. Speaking of courts, what would have happened had a court not forced him to go through with the purchase of Twitter? Well, I mean, we live in a capitalist, society where if you say you're going to do something, you have to do it. So if the court hadn't enforced him, then anybody who bought a company could say, yes, I paid $44 billion, but guess what? It's worth $20 billion, so I'm not going to close. You can't operate that way. The court, it was really, he never got to court because he knew he was going to lose, but that's our system. When you agree to something, it's like you agreeing to sell your house to someone for $100,000 at the heat of the pandemic, when everyone was trying to move out of the city, and then the person calling you and saying, yeah, well, I was going to pay $100,000, but now, my mortgage is more expensive, so I'm only going to pay you $80,000. So I guess it's my way of saying, yes, it's important that we enforce contracts. It's important that he was made to close the deal. He's insane. He will not miraculously. No, I'm not an expert on mental health, but he reminds me of Putin and Trump. They're these megalomaniacs, and it's hard to feel sorry for the guy because he's cruel. I always judge people by how you treat the people that can least fight back against you. And what he did to the janitors, like firing them all right before Christmas and not paying them and having them followed around while they were doing their job. These are people that have no voice. They can't go find another, it's horrible what he did to all of the people, but what he did to people that have nothing, when this guy has so much, he's a horrible human being. So I believe he, has a lot of, issues around whatever, his Asperger's is or whatever, but he's also there are people with Asperger's that are not assholes and villains. He's just an awful human being, which is, him and Trump, why I focus in on them, because authoritarians who are cruel and horrible and seek to undermine our democracy, which is another thing he's doing, we have to stay awake on that. Who would you like to see take over Twitter? I don't have a particular opinion. I know when he first bought Twitter for $44 billion in April, there were private equity funds that said back then, when equity valuations were a lot different, that it was probably worth 25 to 30 billion, and many of them would have, there are plenty of responsible private equity, venture capital kind of players that would come in and install, somebody who made sense. The problem with this company, even before he took it over, for 8 of 10 years, it was not profitable. And that's even when the company had barely any debt. So, it's just at the right price, a responsible grown-up will come in and buy it and put an operator in place. That price is probably roughly a third of what Musk paid for it. And if he were a rational player, again, he lost $5 billion today. If he were a rational player, he would have done that right away. He either would have put someone responsible in, or on Sunday night, he would have sold this company to one of these buyers, because he's losing more in Tesla. For those of you who took Econ 101 and you learned about the opportunity cost, the term opportunity cost means what else could you be doing with your time and money here? He's lost more. The opportunity cost of him flubbing around for the last 48 hours is hurting his brand. It's losing $5 billion. It's time he could have been spent on Tesla, because Tesla is having operational issues. So there's so many different costs that this guy is incurring by being an irrational player. Would love to know what Larry Ellison is saying to him, since Larry Ellison, here are the other owners. Yeah, again, the total purchase price was $46.5 billion. Of that, Musk had 26. The other 7.1, Larry Ellison, a Saudi prince, that Anderson, the really douchey tech bro guy who's in Post 2, who's a rabid misogynist, is also in for, I've heard, $500 million. So yes, what he's saying to them, I have no idea, but they're, other than the guy, I think it was a foreign investor who said today it was worth 5 times that. Anyone with half a brain knows this is worth a lot less, if not worthless. And I'm sure they're not happy about it either. How would another CEO be able to operate if Musk is still controlling the owner? Exactly. Bingo. That's what I said up front. It's sort of irrelevant if he installs a figurehead. It's sort of like the guy in Belarus, the puppet, the Putin puppet in Belarus, Vishenko. And he might as well be Putin Jr. When you install a puppet, he still reports to Putin, essentially. Whoever this man or woman is, and nobody with any sort of reputation would want to do this job, because the company's hemorrhaging money. The company has 2,000 employees left. The company has alienated its users. The company has regulatory issues in the US and abroad. So nobody with any talent is going to want to fall on the sword for Musk. And whoever he brings in will answer to him. There's no board of directors. There's a party of one. So to me, it's irrelevant whatever he does with that. We're still going in the same direction. And that road is either bankruptcy, restructuring, or sale. Offer to turn Twitter headquarters into affordable housing. Yeah, I mean, I talked about this on Sunday night. There was an article Sunday in the New York Times business section about San Francisco and the office rates, vacancy rates being so high and it being a ghost town downtown. So they're probably not so eager to foreclose on him, but it's not a good situation. Hey, stop rubbing in the value of our homes have dropped. I think he takes too many uppers and downers. I haven't followed the guy this closely. I think he sort of has billed himself as a superhero, and the same people who have been telling us you don't understand blockchain, you don't understand crypto and Bitcoin. Hey, listen, I listen. And I also I have something to say about all of these podcasters and everything that sort of mainstreamed it. And I would listen to all this stuff and I was like, this doesn't really make any sense to me. And guess what? It didn't make sense because it wasn't worth anything. So trust your gut. It's always a good lesson. If it doesn't make sense to you, stay away. He and Jarrett look like lapdogs with the Saudi cups. Yeah, I mean, like I said Sunday, I believe that he was trying to go there with the purpose of asking for money. And they said no. I think that's why, again, we knew that on Friday night, it was reported by the Wall Street Journal that he was asking new investors to put in equity at the $44 billion valuation. I'm sure he was asking the Saudis for the same. The assets of Twitter were the people he fired. Yes. Yeah. That is very true. What makes a company, like I've said in the past, you could have secured debt, and if you were a airline, you have aircraft that secure your debt. If you're a manufacturing plant, you have manufacturing equipment that secured your debt. The value of a service company, there's a saying on Wall Street, they come into work every day and they leave and turn off the lights at home and go home. It's the people. And he fired, or they left, 5,500 out of 7,500 people. And if you've worked at a corporation, you can't even lose 100 people without a corporation going through major shifts. He doesn't have a communications department. He doesn't have entire departments. And at some point, the Tesla engineers, like Elizabeth Warren said, the Tesla engineers that are on loan to Twitter have to go back and do their jobs. This is a public company. Same with SpaceX. They're not a public company. It's maybe not as dire, but NASA has been concerned about and spoken to the head of SpaceX about their concern with Trump, Freudian slip, Musk being sidelined. What if Musk sells to another bad actor, Saudis, Russians? I don't believe he can sell to the Saudis or Russians. There was already, we've talked about this in another session, that Janet Yellen admitted that the Treasury Department was looking at who the buyers are. I think that would be blocked, or they would shut it down in the U.S., which is something that might happen. You know, there's legislation by Rubio, bipartisan legislation to get TikTok out of the United States, and already some states have shut down TikTok. I don't believe he'll be able to sell it. And Russia has no money. Putin is trying to finance his war, and the Saudis are not, I'm sure he was already asking them when he was there. Please opine on whether Twitter has become quickly a conservative and disinformation actor. Yes. And what I have said from the first time we did one of these Facebook Lives, the only thing that differentiates Musk Twitter from Trump Social, from Parler, from every other failed far-right enterprise that is basically worth zero. The only thing that makes it any different is people like us who are reasonable people providing content. Otherwise, it's just another far-right shit show. And that's what it's become, and why the valuation of this company is decreasing. Because when it becomes a far-right shit show, the advertisers don't want their brand associated with it, so they stop advertising. And that's why it's so important that we stay off until we have new ownership. If the new ownership is stupid enough to come in and do the same thing, which I do not believe that anyone is going to be that stupid, then it's, we stay off. But I believe we will be back on in the first quarter. I believe this company will be sold or bankrupt. There will be new ownership. And then you can decide if you miss Twitter and you want to go back. It's up to you all if you want to try these other, it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't. You're here. Facebook, I think, is a good place for now. Don't love Zuckerberg, hate Facebook, but it's the devil we know. These other things, Mastodon, whatever, seems like, a nice place. It's not going to be the same. And Post has its ownership, some real tech douche bros. So tread carefully on these other places. I do believe just stay off. If you want to be on Twitter to look, fine. Just do not provide content. Let's see. If Twitter ends up in bankruptcy, will there be a receiver appointed? Probably not. Probably what happens is, if it goes into bankruptcy, the basic process, you don't need to know the whole intricacies, but basically what happens is there's a valuation of what the company is. And at that point, the company is going to be valued probably something around what the bank debt is worth. So, and how you establish that value is the banks will want to sell it to another operator. They will essentially become the owners of it, or have some sort of basically private shares of some sort to give themselves ownership, and they'll sell it to somebody else who will then operate it. Do you know if Kathy Wood of ARK Investments is heavily Yeah, I've been thinking about her. Yeah, she's bought more Tesla and has been buying. She's a big Musk fan, and she's been completely wrong on that. Feels like a continuation of the WeWorks document. Yeah. I mean, he's just not. He had no plan. Kathy Wood with the Twitter 2.0. There's no big plan with this company. He didn't have any plan. It was just hubris. Why is the company still worth 10 to 20 billion if it's already running in the red? That's a good question. So there's companies are typically valued, I don't want to go like way too far into finance, but they're not valued on bottom line, which is basically the 4 billion, like what they're after EBITDA. Well, they're based on top line. So the revenues, because that's the perspective of what it could be worth if the capitalization were right, if the company were doing better. So people don't look at the bottom to value a company. So it can be losing $4 million a day, but still be worth something. In the right hands, this company, if you buy it for 10 to 15 billion and do it right, could be worth 30 billion because you could get advertisers back and you could find other ways to enhance the platform and make it better. So for the right smart person, this would be a good purchase. But yeah. Let's see. I just keep thinking about the amazing good that could have been done with this amount of money. Yeah, my friend Carly said that the other night at dinner. I mean, this guy, this year alone, imagine if he had said, I am going to donate 156 billion to solve world hunger. He would have been a hero instead of a villain. I literally feel better after each of these videos. Yeah, I mean, guys, it's the same thing I've been telling you since before Thanksgiving, since the beginning of November. This company is going to go out of business. It's going to be restructured or it's going to be sold. We didn't know exactly how it was going to play out. The reason why he's stepping down or trying to step down is because of what's happening with Tesla. So it's quickening the demise, but whether he stays on or off or has a puppet regime running Twitter, this company it can't support $100 million of interest a month. It can't support 1.2 billion. When this company, before he bought it, the run rate was 4.8 billion of revenue. It's now something like 3 to 3.5. So you have to pay half of that out for interest. There's nothing left to operate. No, yeah, I mean, this company it's not sustainable. I'll take one more question. And then if you didn't get to ask your question, I'll flick through them after and try to answer them. Do you think Twitter Musk still hasn't hit bottom yet? Yes. And I'll tell you why. I was so disturbed today, literally, by how little this guy understands about finance. I mean, the stuff he was sending, it's crazy that this guy can, and it's also because he's, like the other autocrats and like Putin, if Putin doesn't agree with the general, they fall out the window of their apartment, a mysterious fall. Or if the oligarchs do that. It's the same thing with Musk and with Trump. If they don't like what they're hearing, they just get rid of people. So he's basically, I'm sure he's got calls coming in from the banks saying, what the hell? He's got calls coming in from buyers. He's got calls coming in from his co-investors. He's got calls coming in from the Tesla board and his brother saying, we are getting so much pressure. And he's on Twitter tweeting. He's acting like a 12-year-old. I didn't have high expectations for him, but I'm surprised how awful he is. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to make recommendations on the Tesla equity. There might be people foolish enough to believe that he's going to find somebody to take over as CEO, and there might be a lot of short covering tomorrow. It might go up, but you can see how fundamentally the analysts have reevaluated this company and how badly he has hurt Tesla in such a short time. And I don't know if you get that back. There are so many brands, listen, I'm in my 50s. There's so many brands that I grew up with that don't exist anymore. That's part of how the world works. You hurt your brand enough, it goes out of business. So I don't think he's hit bottom because I think he's really irrational, and I think he doesn't know what to do. And I think he's hiding and sending these like crazy tweets that have nothing to do with the problem. Like, oh, well, I didn't just lose $5 billion today. I think he's just out of his league. And he's in real trouble. It's going to be a loop where it keeps losing advertisers, keeps losing customers. I know it's anecdotal, but all the analysts are saying the same thing, that people are saying, I would never buy a Tesla. There's going to be other options. The lag time on Teslas has gone from months to you can get it next week. Good news. So with that, everyone, good night. If you didn't get your question answered, I will go back after this and try to answer the West. But message is, stay the course. We're doing exactly what we need to be doing. We got to get rid of him, and then we've got to get new ownership. And then we have the option to go back if you want. If you don't miss it, don't go back. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you.